The Holy Gospel according to St. Matthew, the 2nd chapter. Now after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, in the days of Herod the king, behold, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem, saying, "Where is he who is to be born King of the Jews? For we saw his star when it rose and came to worship him." When Herod the king heard this, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. And assembling all the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where this Christ was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for so it is written by the prophet, 'And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for from you shall come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel.' Then Herod summoned the wise men secretly and ascertained from them what time the star had appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, 'Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word that I too may come and worship him.' After listening to the king, they went on their way, and behold, the star that they had seen when it rose went before them until it came to rest over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced exceedingly with great joy. And going into the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they fell down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures, which they offered him, gifts of gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their own country by another way. Friends, this is the gospel of our Lord.
Our text for this morning is the gospel lesson. It's one of my favorites. It's from Matthew 2. It's the Gentile Christmas. It's the wise men coming to worship Jesus. It's Epiphany, which was just Friday, January 6th. It's our Christmas. And the title of the message? Two things that fit right together: squirrels and wise men. Join me in reading these two verses from that lesson. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who's been born the King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." You may be seated. Now, here's the question I want to plant in your mind. How? How did those wise men know? How did they know that this was a world-changing event? How did they know that they were bringing gifts? And what gifts to bring? How did all those pieces of prophecies from over 1,000 years earlier fit to them? How? Well, part of the answer is right there in front of you. That is a squirrel with a black walnut in his mouth. In my backyard, there is a large, probably about a 70-foot black walnut tree, and then just along our fence, on the other side, are 4 black walnut trees. This year, I picked up 2 full wheelbarrows of black walnuts. And then everything that fell after that, I threw in a corner as a stockpile for squirrels. But here is the interesting part. Those black walnuts ended up all over our house on the outside, all along the top of our latticing. Black walnuts were hidden, laying up near the rafters, just like you see there. How did they know to put them there? In our gutters, I don't know if you can see it, but right there in the corner where the downspout meets the house, there are 2 black walnuts. These were stockpiles like I hadn't seen before. And if you remember back, we ended up having 2 snowfalls of about 5 to 6 inches that came on Thursdays, just before Christmas. Remember? Here's my point. Those squirrels knew that picnic table that sits on our patio, covered, underneath it on that steel bar, right here, there were 6 black walnuts hidden. They were put there where they would not be buried by the snow. In other words, the squirrels would have access. They could come and get them, and they could eat. In other words, they wouldn't starve. They knew that big snow was coming. One question. How? How did they know? I mean, the weathermen got it wrong. I don't know if you remember, we were supposed to get like 14 inches, remember? Didn't happen. But the squirrels knew. And that's the question. How? Today, we celebrate Epiphany. You heard, as Pastor Rod read, the account of the wise men coming to worship Jesus. It's called the Gentile Christmas. It's the Magi, the kings from the east, or let me rephrase, the representatives of the kings who brought gifts. And the interesting part is this was all announced in Isaiah and in Psalms. Psalm 72, Solomon wrote they would come and worship this king. 1,000 years earlier. Isaiah, 800 years earlier. Unbelievable with the detail and the prophecies. And then, to look at Matthew. Matthew, who quotes 47 references to the Messiah in his book alone, telling you about this. So think about it. How does it all fit together for you? For us? At first glance, it doesn't seem to fit. Even the squirrels and the wise men. But look at the detail here. These wise men were Gentiles. They weren't Jews. They came up to 2 years later. And so in our manger scene, you always have them walking too. And they brought expensive gifts, gold, frankincense, and myrrh. You know, and by giving them those gifts, you know, God was preparing for their flight to Egypt, to care for Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus. All a part of the plan. God's plan. But from our question, we have to ask, how? How did they know? And then perhaps the most important part, why? How does it fit with you and me? In our lives 2,000 years later, as we sit in Wisconsin and we get cold and we get snow and then we get nice weather and all of the above. You know, it's kind of amazing when you look at this account. Over the last year especially, I've used this children's Bible a lot. Pastor Rod refers to it as Pastor Charlie's Bible. And why? Because it's got pictures. But the marvel of this Bible is it tells you the whole Epiphany story with 4 pictures. It gives you all the key parts. Matthew gives us the account that after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod, Magi, wise men from the east, came to Jerusalem. We saw his star in the east, and we have come to worship him. Look at the picture. They're standing there, they're pointing, their eyes glowing. Kind of says it all. They knew. How did they know? They knew. And here was an event that they knew enough to say, we're dropping everything. We're going to take a year journey. We're bringing gifts. And then the right gifts, all according to prophecy. They followed his star. They went to Jerusalem because they thought a king had to be born in a capital, in a palace, to a king. And so they went to Herod. And they asked Herod. Herod didn't know. I ain't got a baby. Not me. So he brought in the chief priests, the teachers of the law. And they read Micah's prophecy. But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, yet out of you will come one who will be the ruler of my people Israel. Those words from Micah, the detail, putting those pieces together, they journeyed to Bethlehem. They followed the star. And our text goes on to say, on coming to the house, they saw the child. Now notice it says in Matthew, the child, not the baby. And look at this picture in the children's Bible. That kid's standing there with his mother Mary. And they bowed down and worshiped him. They opened their gifts, their treasures, and presented him with gifts of gold and incense and myrrh. And notice the very top line, word underlined, house. They didn't worship him in a stable, but in a house. God's plan to save a sinful world. Our Gentile Christmas to save us. Because we are the sinful world. Day in, day in, day out. We have anger. We have jealousy. We have spiteful actions that we do. All kinds of stuff in our lives. And we hurt the people closest to us. Our spouse, our children, our family, our friends. That sinful part of us is why Jesus came. We live in a world that seems to be getting crazier. I want to ask you this question. Over Christmas and over New Year, how many of you saw a commercial on TV where a gentleman got up and said, I'm here to speak for the freedom from, or rephrase, against religion? The guy went on to say, I am a lifelong atheist, and I am not afraid of going to hell. That was his commercial. How many of you saw it? Raise your hands. About half. The rest of you got to get out more. But this is a world that has slipped away from Christ. You know, and just like the world of Jesus' day, you know, there weren't big crowds coming to worship Jesus. Just shepherds and wise men. You know, and that's the amazing part. My father had an old German saying, because you know I'd have to get a German line in here somewhere. Eines Tages werden sie bewahr werden. One day, they will come to know. So this guy that said, I'm not afraid of going to hell, on national TV, in commercials for all to see. You know what my dad would say? Just wait. Just wait. You'll get your wish. Only then, it'll probably be too late. And that's the point. God doesn't want it to be too late for us. And so, my line. Trust my boss. But there's more. Depend on him. Rely on him. And as my years of preaching here come to a close, that statement, that line, that's the point. That's the key. That was my next line. But it's so important for us. The wise men did. And here's the other part. Squirrels know. And so as you see squirrels running around in your backyard, as you see them carrying a walnut, I want that to be a trigger picture for you. I want that to be an image that pops in your mind, that takes them back and causes you to ask, how? How? How did they know? And the answer is simple. God. I don't think they got angels that appeared, take the nuts and hide them. But they did. And God took care of them, and he takes care of us. All of us. And to all of you, I'd say thank you. This was my 15th Christmas and Epiphany at Bethlehem. And I thank all of you for that. And so now there's just one question to be asked. Now what? So, I have a video. Today marks the end of my preaching and my call here at Bethlehem Lutheran Church, Sun Prairie. After 14 years and several months, it is time for Pastor Charlie Brandt to step aside, to retire from the ministry. And as part of that, it's time for me to have preached my last sermon here at Bethlehem. And so the stole that I wore for years is now removed. The cross that has special memories from an old member is removed. The marks of a pastor with his robe and cincture, come on. A lot of people have asked, what will retirement be like for me? I want to tell you, I absolutely love being a pastor, preaching and teaching Bible classes, sharing God's Word, and being a part of all of your lives. So what will retirement look like for me? What do you think? I don't think so. When you love what you do, going to work is not a job. And so I may change my location, but I will not change my vocation. Thank you for being a part of it.